Hi everybody, this is Matthew with F3IT. I'm on site here at a location that we will be signing on for point of sale support. So before we sign a customer on, we always do an onboarding health check to make sure that the network and or the point of sale is in a good spot for us to continue and provide support for them and help troubleshoot all their issues. And so when we are on site, there's a checklist of some things that we go through, and the first thing that we like to typically check is to make sure that their networking is good. So that way their terminals, handhelds, KDS screens, whatever that is, are getting good enough internet connection to be able to operate at their full functioning power. And so the first thing that I normally like to do is check where their network rack is with the toast router as well as the modem. This location that I am currently at has their networking equipment underneath their host stand. And so when we get down here, you can see all of their AV equipment, their modem, their toast router there, and what seems to be a toast access point. And so sometimes we'll be able to just check and see where all the cables are lining up at. I know that as a toast Meraki, this port number 1 is usually going to that modem. So if I trace this back here, I can confirm that port 1 is in the modem, so that's good. Port 2, this cable here runs to the back of the rack under there, comes back up, and it looks like that is feeding their host station up at the top. We have a third cable here that is running to a power injector, which is feeding this front access point here. Then we also have this cable, which looks to be running down and feeding a port or a switch that they have downstairs that runs the extra point of sale equipment. So the next thing I'm going to do before I head downstairs to that rack that is there, since it seems like everything else is going to terminate down there, we have these remotes that I have plugged into the cables that will be running up and around over across the kitchen and going downstairs to the network rack to supply these screens with internet. So I'm going to test those and make sure that those cables are still testing good and see if there are any cables that we need to replace in order to get them in a better working position. So we are now at this downstairs switch that is operating most of their point of sale devices, and we're going to test those cables that we plugged the remotes into upstairs on the other end for those KDS screens. So I do have my phone here with some notes about which remotes they're using, because they'll come in as IDs 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, or 6. And then from there, we'll be able to see what cables are failing. Hopefully they're all passing. And then I do have my label maker here that I will use to label anything. And so this way, if they are calling in for any troubleshooting issues or we need to send someone on site in the future, all these cables will be labeled with the point of sale equipment to make troubleshooting that much easier. So what we're going to do here, it seems like those were all the gray cables that are running up. So I'm just going to unplug this cable 1. And currently the only 2 ports active are 15 and 6. So that's going to tell me that one of those, this gray cable, since that looks like the same cable that was going up to that Meraki, this is likely the cable that is going to be the main uplink for this system, and that's connecting back to that main toast router. And then this may be another point of sale device. They do have a server station that's next to the kitchen, so my guess is that's what that's going to be. But after we didn't have enough ID remotes to test all those cables in one go, so after I test these KDS screens, I'll use one of the remotes on that server terminal upstairs by the kitchen, and I assume that that is going to be the one that's going to test for that. So here on this port 1, I'll plug this into our device and turn it on, and right away we can see it recognizes an ID. So we can see right here, it recognizes ID 4, so that's the remote number 4. So when I click this button on the top right here, that's what's going to test that cable. So this one is passing. We have all the numbers that are aligning properly. So all the cables are testing and they're all matching the same formation. So we know that that cable is good. And in my notes, I have that as the omelet KDS. So I'm just going to make a quick label for that. My Dymo label. We'll wrap that around this cable. And so that way the managers or employees that may be calling in for troubleshooting will know which cable goes to which screen. And we will have that information for ourselves as well. So I'm going to pull cable 2, and some of these may not have a remote in them if it's a cable that's not currently being used. So we may see this one just straight up fails and is listed as open. So that is probably a cable that isn't currently plugged in. But we will come back and double check that later. If there is a station that we're still missing a cable for, then that may be one that is just needing to be re-terminated. Here we go. So this one has the ID 6, and we can see those first 2 cables are failing. They're not going back to the screen. So what we can do here, it looks good on this end. So we will note this as one to check when we go back upstairs, because one of these ends may need to be re-terminated. So we will keep that in mind. And we will note that that cable failed. Okay, and then that's the cable number 6 right here that we don't have a remote in yet, and that is likely the Meraki cable coming back down. This one is another just open failure, so this cable is likely not being used. There's another failure there. So now we're getting down to the last cable here, and we still do have a few more remotes that are currently plugged in. That one passed. And the remote number 5 looks like it's for the middle KDS. So we will label that. And then we might as well check these blue cables. That is not recognizing an ID. Either is this one. Then finally 13 here. This is also not recognizing an ID. So what we have here now, after testing those cables with the remotes, there are a couple that we are still missing. We have an omelet screen and a middle KDS screen that passed. We have a grill KDS that failed with a couple of those wires not registering. And then we have a coffee kitchen screen and the Expo KDS screen that we did not see a remote for on this end. So we need to do further troubleshooting up near the KDS screens to make sure that that connection is coming back down here. So we need to further test those to see where that issue may lie. So when investigating that Expo KDS screen, I noticed that there was another cable there that we could use that I believe was the one that is mainly giving that KDS screen the internet. And so I plugged that one in. And so now on this cable, should be good to go. Yep. So now that cable passes. So the cable that we currently have this remote on the other end plugged into for that Expo KDS screen is good. And we can continue looking at the other terminals and the other wires to see why those weren't passing the test or why we weren't seeing those at all. So while trying to find where these kitchen screens terminate back to in order to fix some of these cables, I did find something interesting, and this is part of the reason why we do all these inspections. So this is their kitchen station here, but these little flaps pop up, and inside I found another switch. So a couple of these cables go back to this kitchen switch that runs along to a port on the side, and that goes down to their switch downstairs. So for one of these cables, I was able to trace it back to the switch. And then the other screen that the cable failed, when I connect the new cable to that screen back there, I can plug it back in here for it to get a connection, so they don't have to worry about running an entirely new cable all the way down to the basement. So at this point now in the site inspection and onboarding process, we have the point of sale network pretty well laid out. We know where everything is going. We've tested and traced all the cables. We found that hidden switch that was above the KDS screens. So we were able to figure out where all those go. And so now we can do some more investigation into the current network infrastructure that they have, just speed tests from the modem, see what speeds they're getting. Then we can go to their point of sale systems and do things like test the card readers, They have handhelds as well that we can test and to check the connectivity to the wireless access points that they have here for the POS. Test the card readers, do test payments, make sure those are working properly, as well as testing the printing on the printers and making sure the cash drawers pop. So those are the kind of things that we like to look out for when we are doing our onboarding checks, just to make sure that there's nothing that we are unaware of when they will be calling in for support. So something like that kitchen switch, that is a good thing to note now, so that way we know where exactly to go to troubleshoot that further, whether it's over the remote or if we do need to send somebody down here on site. So thank you for taking a look at our kind of troubleshooting steps as we go through onboarding a new customer. I hope this was helpful, and I hope you have a good day, weekend, night, whatever it is where you are. Thank you.